Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at the other play-in game tonight, the Western Conference version of this 9-10 matchup. We've got the Spurs headed to New Orleans, taking on the Pellies. Make sure you do check out Nate's great article up on playpicks.com as well. The man is writing a ton out there. All of these playoff games, as well as plenty of baseball on there as well. I will plug for him. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page as well, so you can check out the other couple videos we have up for you today. Got our player props video, as well as the other Eastern Conference 9-10 matchup up tonight for you guys. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into these games.
Yeah, we got both 10 seeds about +5 on the road. Spurs are getting an extra half point. The Hornets are +5 at Atlanta. That total's been bet down a little bit to 235, still pretty high for a play-in game. The Spurs are +5.5 at New Orleans. That total's also been bet down to 224, as people are gonna looking at the early results and saying, wow, these games are played a lot slower than the regular season games. There's a lot better defense. And if the Wolves are only going to total 213, the best team against the overall season, that's what they got last night with the Clips. I think we should be very reluctant to bet any overs in this do or die situation. There are numbers supporting the under here as well. That's not my preferred bet necessarily, but I do like the Spurs to cover with that under, assuming they're going to keep it pretty close. I mean, the first thing that stands out about this matchup is the coaching difference. Willie Green, I believe, making his playoff debut as a head coach for the Pels, going up against the great Greg Popovich. And interesting that these Spurs, they've met 3 times since the Pelicans acquired CJ McCollum, and I'm not really looking at anything about the Pelicans before the CJ trade because it's a completely different team. Their offense has been pretty damn good with him, that's for sure. I mean, but the pace has been slower, 97.5 down to 96.5 since March 1st. They've gone under in 6 of 11 games. At home, the offensive rating is better at home, but the defensive rating also better, and that pace is the key. The key for me in looking at why the Spurs, I mean, aside from the fact that they've just covered in 7 straight as underdogs, that they've said, all right, the Lakers are going to bow out of this race. We will do our thing and just compete, show our culture, and at least, keep these games competitive. So, I mean, I like them to cover first and foremost, but I don't think that it's outlandish to think about them winning. The Pelicans, they've been great. They've blown out a few teams with CJ, but the key stat for me, they are 3-8 against the spread at home against playoff teams since acquiring CJ. So it's a bit of a different feel when you get a team that's well coached that can really gear their defense around stopping CJ and Ingram. And you remember that series? I mean, back 2005 or whatever, where the Spurs let Steve Nash get 50 points and they beat the Suns.
Yes.
That's still a Popovich strategy. I mean, the first meeting with this team, CJ and Ingram combined for 60 and they got nothing else from anybody else, and the Spurs won. And I mean, the second meeting, I don't know what happened. The Pelicans just dominated, 30-point win. Third meeting, Spurs again let CJ get all his points. Ingram was out, so they didn't have anything else, but they let him go off, and they won a low-scoring game despite DeJounte Murray shooting just 4 for 19, still had a triple-double in that game. So I just like the way that they're going to be able to move chess pieces, not the queen and that queen's the only important one in chess. all the pawns, the way they're going to be able to move the pawns around the queen, so to speak, with DeJounte going up against CJ here. I trust what the Spurs can do more on the wings to limit those other guys. Pirtle on Valanciunas, not a bad matchup there. Like, they're 19-12 against the spread as road dogs. They're 5-2 straight up their last 7 on the road. They're also 19-12 to the under as road dogs. Pace is slowed down. They're 7th in fourth quarter defense. And I mean, the last thing about this matchup, they allow the second fewest free throw attempts per game, and Nola is getting the second most free throws per game. So I think they have the recipe here to just, even if CJ and Ingram go off, which we'll talk about in player props for sure, the Spurs have a recipe to just keep this game close and see what happens down the stretch.
Totally. And, speaking of those quote unquote pawns on the Spurs, I mean, yeah, there's a ton of guys averaging double figures. I believe it's 5 other guys besides DeJounte averaging double figures. Yeah, 6 total. So yeah, there's plenty of ways for them to score and attack. I do think this is a game that they can definitely cover. I definitely like the under. I loved it at 230. It's definitely been bet down even as we're recording this to 224.5. But I mean, the average score of games going on, all of their last 4 games is about 221, I believe, right? So well below the 220, the 226.5 that it was just a minute ago, it feels like, and now it's already down to 224.5, and it feels like it's moving fast. And by the time this comes out, it might be closer to 221.5 or so. But that's about where I would, continue to bet an under. We said in the other game, we definitely aren't suggesting you bet an under at 235 or really in the Hornets and Hawks game, but this one feels a lot more tailored to it. You've got DeJounte Murray also, him being back. He actually missed a few games there. Him being back also contributes heavily to him being able to guard CJ. I believe he was in the top 5 in steals this season. He might have more than 2 a game into DeJounte. So he's definitely looking at an all defensive team as well. So, that's huge for them in terms of CJ, what he's brought to the table. We know what he's been doing for them, since he came along. But yeah, I think everything in terms of the way that these teams play, the pace that the Spurs have been going at the rate that they've been playing, dialing it down a bit and increasing that half court offense, which this is really interesting. And this is what I kind of wish I would have looked at more closely too in the Hawks and Hornets matchup, is just how good is your half court offense? And by the way, that's why the Suns should be the favorite for sure. As no matter where you're playing this season, the Suns have the best half court offense, but at home the Hawks have the best home court offense. However, on the Spurs also are actually surprisingly good in their half court offense. If you look at their last 10 specifically, to end the season, they were in the top 10 in terms of net rating, in terms of half court play, both on offense and defense. So they're looking a lot better there. And like we said, they have 6 guys averaging double figures, so a lot more ways for them to score. Kind of a win-one for the Gipper kind of feel to it. I will say, look, talking about the spread, I wouldn't mind hitting the money line for the Spurs just for the juice there. But at the same time, I just feel really much better about the spread in a way that I don't really need to get cute with it, to be honest, because I do think that, yeah, this is one where you look at the numbers and against the spread for the Pellies, things are a little bit misleading. Yes, they're 9-6 when Ingram and CJ play straight up this season, but there's that 3-8 number against teams above 500 or teams that are in the playoffs. Can't say the Spurs are above 500; they're not even close, but they get a chance to still get into the playoffs. So yeah, I'm gonna hit that spread. I'm gonna hit the under as well, and just parlay those right now. Honestly, I got it at 226 really, so that's what I'd like it for. But yeah, I think all the way at 224, I think it's still good for an under. I think once you get to that 221 number, now I'm kind of like I'm staying away, and I'll just hit that line for the Spurs there.
Yeah, well, that's where you go with the match/line total parlay, which I guess FanDuel gives it to you where it opens. If you go and find that in the popular tab, you can get Spurs plus 5.5 and the under for plus 180, and you can get them. Yeah, the odds might change, but I don't think they're changing the number there. Interestingly enough, so you can also get the Spurs money line and the under, and get like plus 750 if you're confident enough in that win. I mean, it is a coin flip. These games are absolutely coin flips when they're win or go home like this. So I have no problem trying to get that extra juice. Maybe, I mean, you just add that to the safer bet of the Spurs to cover. The Spurs have benefited from a little extra days off, 10-5 against the spread in that situation. That, again, speaks to the preparedness of a Greg Popovich team. They're number 7 in fourth quarter defense. So down the stretch, I think you could see this slowing down a little bit. Spurs playing better defense on those 2 guys after they've had to carry such a load. I mean, that's why the pace is slower for the Pels, right? Because they're like, we have 2 scorers. We need to keep it slow, keep them fresh. And it's a good explanation for why the Pelicans haven't covered or haven't beaten these good teams reliably is because they're tops in turnover rate. Since the All-Star break or their last 15 games, they're 1 or 2, depending on the venue, in turnovers forced. And the Spurs are number one in assist to turnover ratio. They're not going to hand you points. They're not going to throw the ball away in any way. So I don't think that there's a lot for the Pelicans to capitalize on here. Also, Spurs third in field goal defense since they started this nice stretch on the road, allowing 111.5. But they are allowing a healthy 13.5 threes. Well, New Orleans is 29th in three-pointers made this season. They have very limited options with them playing that bulky lineup with Herb Jones and Ingram and Joe Val. So, I think the pieces are in place to continue that chess analogy for Popovich to play a defensive game and get that Spurs cover and the under.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, don't disrespect Joe Val's 3-point shooting. He made 7 in a game this season. Just a reminder to everybody. Yeah, it goes in sometimes. But the crazy stat there too for that money line. Just that the Spurs the last 4 times that they have been underdogs against the Pels, they won straight up, right? So Pop knows what he's about. Man knows his business. He's got his queen in place in terms of DeJounte Murray tonight, and I feel good about the Spurs' ability to cover and definitely a lack of points if you can get it at the right spot. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to check out those other couple videos we have up for you today, including the player props one. We're going to continue to bring you guys throughout the playoffs. And until we see you next, happy betting.